My name is Holmes and I'm an artist and DJ commissioned by Arts Catalyst for the Skylarking exhibition. There were quite a few different references that I'm often working between and thinking about. The starting point for that's usually music. I've specifically been interested in music from the Caribbean, dub, reggae music, roots, soul music and the blues, and their kind of iterations and the ways that they've always been a sort of alternative form of storytelling, told or retold, I guess, different experiences of environment, of place, of landscape, and also of kind of more intimate, personal, family, romantic relationships. Initially, it was an invitation to two friends of mine, Wemmy Ogunyankin and Akeem Balogun. And I invited them to join some collective walks to Speedwell Cavern and to Treecliff Cavern in the Peak District. And we got back together maybe a few weeks after to kind of share our thoughts, share our experiences. And then Wemmy and Akeem went away and produced their own kind of draft versions of the story and of the poems. Seigfried recorded some of his saxophone parts on site. So we kind of worked through these draft versions of the things we've been making and thinking about, and then had another moment of coming back together to sort of go through a co-editing process and co-writing process.
My name is Wemmy Ogunyankin and I am a creative writer.
My name is Akeem Balogun and I am one of the writers for the project.
I wrote a poem called Elements. It is a response to kind of the oversimplification of Mother Nature and how we act like she exists only in servitude to humans. And the poem tells the story of an act of resistance to forced removal from our land, to climate injustice, to racism, and to the exclusion that people of colour tend to face from nature spaces as well.
So the story is about a family, grandparents and 3 kids who are travelling across the peaks, and the weather changes, they hide in a cave. But during that time, you start hearing about the granddad's background, him working on the sound system, how the grandmother contributed, and just the kids' kind of fear around the weather starting and just heavy rain and all of this stuff. And it really is just a good way to have people traverse a kind of landscape. And I've used carving as the word because as they're marching through the landscape, they're also kind of carving into the history of their grandparents as well.
It was a horrible day weather-wise on that day. It was awful because we had to walk from where we were to the train station, and we didn't enjoy it, but because we had such a good time with each other, fell over a few times and that kind of thing. There was just so much love and joy that traversing for an hour trying to get to a train station nearly made it into the poem actually, the story of that. But it's the safety that I had with them to go on a boat underground, to fall in the mud, to get a bit lost in hope somewhere. It's a metaphor, of course.
We were recording together, walking together, writing together, getting rained on because it was very wet the days that we went up there.
The ways Akeem and I, obviously Akeem was writing a short story, I was writing a poem, and we worked implicitly together, sharing our ideas and thoughts with each other in a way that we kind of always knew what we were thinking, but it was still a surprise at the end to see how beautifully our pieces coalesce with each other.
So as you walk into the space, there's a large circular structure in the centre of the room, and then these 2 kind of curved panels at either end of the space. In the conversations with Mitre and Mondays, they selected different materials that had sort of different properties relating to sound, relating to some of the kind of references of the environment. So the structures are made from a Selenite panel, which is from a kind of sustainable woven material often used for soundproofing in music studios, to kind of create these different moments of rest, moments of contemplation for people that are visiting the exhibition to engage with the audio and some of the reading materials and other resources that are dotted around the exhibition. The lighting in the space is a kind of soft orange glow, which is a bit of a running motif throughout lots of different projects and work that I've been doing. It's something that I'm thinking about in terms of a way of sort of setting a tone or setting a feeling of a space that's not overly theatrical or dramatic, but also has a kind of sedate feel to it or a kind of relaxing feel to it, maybe something that resembles a kind of filter that might happen on screens or on phones as a sort of sleep mode. There are a series of drawings that I've been making for the past 18 months or so, which are graphite drawings on paper, as well as some banners that are printed on a woven fabric material that are kind of adapted from other drawings, other 35mm photographs from around Castleton, around Edale. And they kind of act as sort of placemakers or holders that resemble maps or resemble overhead images perhaps of different kind of landscapes, different areas that we were visiting quite often.
The textures, the sound design, I think they really help bring the pieces together.
I don't like reading my own poetry at all. So it was really nice to kind of be encouraged to do that and to hear it used and received well in the exhibition. That's like the best I could have hoped for, to be honest. I hope it tells stories of like love and resistance, you know, war and peace, softness and toughness, and through it, and basically giving mothers as an entity the opportunity to fight back against all kinds of systemic oppression.
Upwards of 50 years was the distance between them and the 3 grandchildren struggling to keep pace, but who would come because they preferred the walk to church. The eldest sung hymns during their journey sometimes, because she felt bad about missing service, she said.
A little rain is coming,
Grandad announced. He noticed the children's faces grow concerned. He told them he had walked these routes in all kinds of weather when he wasn't much older than them.
My name is Amrita Dalu, and I was the project manager for the vinyl record that was produced as part of the exhibition. We wanted to make an archival object of the exhibition, so every aspect of the show, I think, comes together in this beautiful record.
And it was a way of us trying to think about how sound work is disseminated, or how other ways of listening, of hearing, of kind of thinking about these collective and individual moments might take place and occur, but also to be thinking about, I guess, the kind of like the physicality and the object and what that might do in relation to, you know, the materials and the kind of experience people have as they come into the exhibition.
It really does complement the show, whether that's like the warmth, the friendship, the solidarities, but also the sonic architectures that are brought out in all of these structures that Ashley designed and made. So yeah, it was just a really lovely experience.
So for the public programme for the exhibition, there are a series of workshops and events. I worked alongside the producers and curators at Arts Catalyst, Bella and Anna, to think about people that were situated locally and working in similar sorts of ways or with similar ideas. So the first workshop was with Resolve Collective, who are good friends of mine working in a kind of social architectural practice. And they led a sampling workshop where visitors were invited to pick a song of their choice and locate that on a map of Sheffield, and then as a group collectively write around and perform some of the things that they'd been sampling and writing and thinking of memories, associations of different landmarks around the city. The second workshop was with DJ Mina, who's a DJ and artist based in Sheffield, involved with Mondo Radio and Calabash. And it was an introductory workshop for DJing and mixing, which we had in the space, as a way of thinking about sort of extending some of the ideas of the genres of black music that are present in the exhibition. And the third workshop was with Evie Muir from Peaks of Colour, and she led a writing workshop, a kind of way of thinking about embodied practices and relationships to healing and liberation within the immediate surroundings of the Peak District and Sheffield, and thinking about different poetic ways that people might respond to that and collectively come together to create this sort of quite informal anthology. And then the final event as part of the exhibition was a Sounds from the Ground event, which was hosted at the Gmail at Sadaka and involved Kamaru and Nkisi, two artists and musicians. a lot of their work informs some of the stuff that I'm interested in terms of these different traditions of black electronic music and how different stories are told within these sonic practices. So something that I think I've learned from the project is, I guess, to kind of come into things with an element of openness. I had a loose idea of maybe what the exhibition was going to feel like, but to kind of enlist trust in people that I'm working with and give them the confidence and the space, I guess, to let things unravel and unfold in the way that they feel necessary, in the way that they need, without kind of being too prescribed about what the outcome might need to be. So in a way, it's a really interesting process because it's also brought up questions around authorship, questions around ownership that are quite specific to the musical references, that are quite specific to this idea of public space and areas of the Peak District and the histories that has of kind of ownership and trespass and privatisation. So all of the things kind of unfold and come together in lots of different ways, but it's been a really interesting process to kind of learn from and reflect over.